They had a very low-key poor traditional marriage, and all the villagers laughed at them, especially the ladies he had asked out. Their marriage became a thing of mockery. In a small village called Adeland, there lived a man named Ekutos. Ekutos was a simple farmer. He planted crops and cleared people's farms to survive. His family was so poor that even the poor in the village called them poor. He was the only child of Grandma and Grandpa Akman. In his entire lifetime, all Grandpa Akman had achieved was an old bicycle, which he still rode. Grandpa Akman was nearly 90 years old, but was very strong and smart, and still went to the farm. He was a very poor man, but was always cheerful. He believed his son wouldn't end up poor like him, even though he didn't know how. Some days, Ekutos would cry, looking at their very old house, his parents, and the fact that he couldn't do anything to help the situation. What killed him the most was that he couldn't even further his education. He had stopped at high school, but Grandpa would encourage him. Son, just do what you're doing. Don't stain your hands. Let your conscience be pure and keep working hard. One day, it will be your turn to shine. These words kept Ekutos going. Each time he felt like giving up, he remembered his father's words and had a sense of hope to continue. Son, you know there's hope in a living dog than a dead lion, Grandpa would often say, and Ekutos would answer, Yes, Papa. At the age of 30, Ekutos wanted a wife, but no one wanted him. All the ladies in the village laughed at him. Can you even pay my bride price? Even if you work for a whole year, he would never come close, they would say. Some would call him poor and wretched and mock him, saying, Will you sell your father's old bicycle to pay my bride price? He couldn't have a girlfriend because no one wanted to date him. One day, while returning from the farm, he met a very beautiful woman from Adelan. She was an orphan and didn't have friends. She was also the only child of her late parents. She had nothing but an old sewing machine she had inherited from her late mother. With it, she mended people's clothes to survive and also fed from her small farm. Though Ekutos was from a poor home, Tina's case was worse than his. They quickly became friends as they had both been isolated. Finally, seeing someone they could talk to was a relief. Ekutos quickly asked Tina to marry him. I want to see your relatives, he said. But Tina replied, I don't have any relative that I know of. It has always been me and my parents before they passed on. I have an elderly couple who live close to my house. They are like my parents and have been very encouraging. I will talk to them to stand for me as my parents. Oh, that's fine, Ekutos said. So they had a very low-key poor traditional marriage, and all the villagers laughed at them, especially the ladies he had asked out. Their marriage became a thing of mockery. People would say they can only marry each other. They are perfect. Poverty plus poverty equals poverty. They would laugh, but Ekutos and Tina didn't care. They were happy. Whatever people called them didn't bother them. What mattered was that they were married and happy with each other. They were always together, going to the farm and market. Some elderly villagers admired their love, but the young woman kept humiliating and mocking them. One sunny day, Ekutos was weeding his farm as usual. He was working very hard when he encountered a strong tree with very deep roots. He tried to pull the tree out while weeding but couldn't. Ekutos decided to dig around the roots. He dug and dug, but it seemed the roots went deeper and deeper. He was tired, but something inside told him, keep digging. So Ekutos kept on digging. He saw something shining from the roots. He kept digging and found a big shiny diamond. He quickly covered it with cloth and put it inside his tool bag. Then he pulled out the tree and ran home. Ekutos ran straight to his father and showed him the diamond. His father's eyes widened in shock and happiness. Do you know what this is, son? It's a diamond, his father said, but we must not tell anyone. Let it remain within the walls of the house. Son, do you know what this means? This is a fortune if we sell it. Ekutos didn't really know the worth of the diamond, but Grandpa knew. Very early tomorrow morning, we'll go to the city to see my friend Mr. Sampson, who's a goldsmith. He will help us check if it's a real diamond or not. Samson is a good man and he won't cheat us. That night, Grandpa called Mr. Sampson and explained everything to him. They arranged to meet the next day. Early the next morning, Ekutos and his father set out to the city. When Mr. Sampson saw the diamond, he screamed, This is worth billions. They all screamed in excitement. Mr. Sampson said, I know a very rich man who deals in buying and selling pure gold, diamonds, and all manner of precious stones. He'll buy it. That night, Ekutos and Grandpa Akpan stayed at Mr. Sampson's house. They spent the night discussing and making plans. They were very excited. The next day, they went to the rich man's house. The rich man was very happy when he saw the diamond. He knew it was real and quickly bought it, paying them a huge amount of money. Equitos and his family became wealthy in just one day. With the help of Mr. Sampson, they bought a beautiful house in the city. Equitos went back to the village to bring his wife and mother to their new home. Tina was sent to a big fashion school in the city. After 1 year and 6 months, she graduated as the best student and started her own fashion house. Many apprentices came to learn from her. Ekutos also started a furniture business. He had always loved furniture but never had the money to start it. Now he was very successful at it. One day, Tina's father said to him, My son, we are old and not used to the city life. We want to go back to our village and live in our house. That's where we belong and where we want to be buried. You and your wife can stay in the city, but please, when we join our ancestors, don't abandon the village. Visit the house with your children. Don't isolate it. Ekutos replied, I've heard you, Papa. But you're not going back to that old house. Give me 3 months so we can transform the house. The building started and the villagers were surprised. Nobody knew what was happening. In 3 months, Ekutos built a successful mansion in the village for his parents. When they arrived in the village, they came in a very beautiful jeep. The entire village was in awe. The maidens who had mocked Ekutos shouted in shock and regret, Chai! It's not good to write anybody off, they said. What can change anybody? Ekutos and his wife spent a week with his parents in the village before returning to the city. They took good care of Grandpa and Grandma, sending them a weekly allowance. His parents never worked again and lived happily. 5 years later, they died peacefully at a good old age. As they had promised, Equitos and his family visited the village every year, especially during Christmas. They employed someone to take care of the house in the village, and so they lived. Moral lessons: never write anybody off. As long as there's life, there is hope.